All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this SUNY Online SUNY Online Summit session, Voices of Impact, SUNY Distance Learning Leaders Showcase. I am Aline Slating, Senior Instructional Designer with SUNY Online. I will be your session moderator and available in the chat during the session for any questions. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, Judith Littlejohn, Kristin Hall, and Brandi So. Judith Littlejohn, Director of Online Learning at Genesee Community College, is there where she supports faculty in designing effective, accessible online courses and integrating new tools and strategies to enhance student learning. Her current work focuses on using student feedback to inform meaningful adjustments to online course design, helping instructors identify small, practical changes that improve clarity and engagement. She is also involved in campus efforts to prepare for upcoming Title II digital accessibility requirements and explores the role of AI as a supportive tool in course creation and faculty development. Judy participates in SUNY-wide conversations through Fact2, contributing to shared efforts to strengthen online teaching and learning across the system. We also have Kristin Hall. Kristin is the Senior Instructional Designer in the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching at Stony Brook University, where she has been a part of the community since 2009. She earned her PhD in Curriculum Instruction and the Science of Learning at University of Buffalo, along with a graduate certificate in college teaching. At CELT, Kristin leads a team of instructional designers overseeing online course development projects and advancing initiatives that promote quality course design and effective online teaching. In addition, Kristin is an adjunct faculty member in the Higher Education Administration program, teaching online synchronous courses. And our third presenter, Brandi So, PhD, is the Director of Distance Learning at SUNY Farmingdale State College, a majority-minority technical college that provides a range of professional undergraduate and graduate degrees in the technology, health sciences, engineering, and business fields. As a first-generation high school graduate, Brandi's career has been shaped by a commitment to building best-in-class online educational experiences for all students, and especially students whose circumstances might otherwise prevent them from completing their college degree. With an incredible team of instructional designers, technologists, and student interns, Brandi and the distance learning team serve the students, faculty, and staff at FSC with training, technical support, and course design services. In addition to her career in educational technologies and distance learning, Brandi teaches literature at Farmingdale State College. Welcome, everyone, but particularly our speakers, Judy, Kristin, and Brandi. Off to you, Judy.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, I will share this right now. Okay, can we see that? Okay, so feedback-driven decision-making using student and faculty voice to drive operational change. Thank you. We don't have to linger on this slide. I'm gonna move ahead. Okay, so this is it's a typical feedback-driven improvement loop where we start off collecting people's feedback, analyzing the results, prioritizing what we want to take from the results to make changes, and then act on those decisions and close the loop by getting feedback again and going around again. So this is kind of what we want to talk about. And I'll get into better details here. So in our area in online learning at Genesee Community College, we have about 2/3 of our students are online at any given time. About 1/3 are always online, like they're 100% online. Another third kind of comes in and out of online learning as due to course availability and their personal life schedules and things like that. So we generally have about 2/3 of our campus that we're working with a very small staff here. So we want to try to implement as many improvements as we can. And so to do that, we kind of rely on these annual surveys as a way for students and faculty to let us know if what we're doing is helping them or not. Um, so with the faculty, well, with both, we look at the year as summer, then fall, winter, and spring. So every spring, we're giving the survey to all the faculty who taught online and all the students who've taken at least one online class. Um, so with the faculty, we're asking them about the training that we're providing with them, if we're responsive when they need support, if they have access to all the tools that they need to teach online effectively, and just in general, if we're meeting their needs. And we tweak the survey every year just to make it relevant. Like for instance, this year we're asking a lot more about accessibility. We've always had an accessibility section in the survey, but with Title II looming, that is a big, it's a, what is it, like the elephant in the room all the time? Like we have to make sure that everybody has all the resources they need to get their courses as close to 100% accessible as possible. So that's a big focus right now. And with the student survey, we ask students about, their experience in their online courses, and how they perceive that their faculty are engaging with them. If they feel like their faculty are present with them in the course. And the support services that we provide them, plus the college as a whole, and any barriers that they have to successful on-time completion of their online courses. One thing that we're finding is sending the surveys out. We've been traditionally doing them like right at the beginning of May, and we feel like that's getting to be too late. Many times, I think by then the students, they're doing their course evaluations, they're getting ready for graduation or what have you. They're getting ready to pack up and go home for the summer. And so I think this year we're going to move it up to early April so that we can get more robust feedback and just more people participating overall. We do have a process on campus where we have to edit our surveys, have them ready to go, and then send them to a survey committee for approval before we can send them out to the students. So we have to build in those extra few days for approval. And so we'll be working on these probably next week, beginning of March, so that they're ready to go at the beginning of April. We use Microsoft Forms right now. We've tried different tools over the years, but right now we're a Microsoft campus and our students are also using Microsoft. So Forms seems to be an easy way to do it. So what do we do once we get our surveys back? We try to go through the feedback and see what can we do. Some things we can't change, so some students or faculty might want something that's just outside of our capability to change or make happen in the way that they want. But so we do try to act on whatever we can. So faculty, a lot of the survey results are showing that they just want on-demand training. It's difficult for faculty to stop what they're doing and come to a presentation in a room at a specific time on a topic that may or may not be relevant to them in that moment. They want to be able to access the training they need right in the moment that they need it. So we've moved away from having a lot of the training in the labs to putting more of it in Brightspace and modules or in videos and PowerPoints that they can access through our SharePoint. And that way they can just reach out and grab whatever they need as they need it. We've also expanded our drop-in hours that we're short-staffed right now. There's myself and one instructional designer. So we try to hold drop-ins on a regular basis. Right now we do every Friday morning because we have almost no classes on Fridays. And that seems to help because they're consistent, regular hours, faculty know that we're here. We've also changed one day of drop-in to just be all about accessibility, and that's Tuesday mornings. We have a person who's an accessibility technologist, and her role is to help all of the faculty, particularly the Perkins. She's grant funded, so it's a Perkins effort. And so she works with the faculty on making their content accessible. We're super fortunate here that we've had this position for a few years now. So people, like the whole accessibility concept is not new to anybody. And a lot of their content was already accessible thanks to what Nancy's been doing all along. So that's been great. But at any rate, the faculty want to know exactly when they can get that assistance. And so they also asked, in addition to on-demand training, they also want just self-paced resources. So if they're going to take some time building out a new module or trying something different in their course, they want to have access to the self-paced trainings to be able to get the information they need as they need it. And then on the student side, we hear from students who want to find their courses set up in a consistent way. They don't want to feel like they have to go from course to course and relearn the LMS. They want to know where the syllabus is going to be. They want to know where their instructor contact information is and just get right into the learning content. So we did revise this year our Begin Here section of the courses and try to implement them across the board. And we've had a pretty good implementation rate. I'd say about 70% of the faculty did implement the new modules. The other ones we're trying to work with and get them caught up. But I think that'll help the students, especially when they need to reach out to their faculty. So that's been helpful. They also asked for additional resources. So we have what we call the Student Success course. And it's actually a combination of our online orientation and a general success course for students that has a lot of resources in, and it's been devised in such a way that it's not a one and done orientation. It's a resource for their entire career here at GCC. So they can go in and find out, they can go to the FAQ and find information, and they can find study skills and how to read their degree audit, how to reach out to their success coach, anything like that they would ask in person if they were here is covered in that success course. So our student specialists who work on that have added more content to the FAQs to meet the questions or the topics that students pointed out in the survey results. And they've also made some like topic specific modules. So for example, one new one right now is one where our career counselors have a module and they can put any of their career activities and tools and things for the students right in that one module, and they know where to go to find it. So I think that there's some great additions, I think, to that success course that make it really helpful for the students. They also work a lot on sending out timely announcements without inundating students with announcements just for the sake of sending out an announcement. So one of our specialists sends 2 announcements a week. I think that's a nice, she spaces it out. So it's like Tuesday and Friday, and make sure the students know what's going on, what's new in there for them to find, or what's happening on campus that's being streamed out that they can participate in wherever they are. So because you can see the next bullet, the students want more of a student space. And so to help with that, our specialists made a few discussion topics in that success course. So for example, there's one just for the SUNY Reconnect students to talk to each other about their experiences and what they're doing. So they can find students who are also distance learners who have similar interests or similar issues that they can chat with. And another thing that was new and kind of fun from the student feedback, a couple different students mentioned that they wish we had some kind of a podcast that they could listen to learn more about the college. So one of our specialists, Lloyd Gross, she started a weekly podcast every Thursday. And So every Thursday she's got a different topic. I had asked her to come up with a list of topics for a year before committing to it, just to make sure that we didn't run out of things. And now we have quite the opposite, because people are coming into the office and seeking her out and saying, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. This is what I want to talk about. So that's kind of exciting that we get a small handful of students who listen to it live on Thursdays, and then we get others who follow up and listen to it later on. And I have the link. I'll put it in the chat as soon as I get a moment. But so that's kind of fun. I think it's a new thing for the college, and it's a little bit more successful than we expected. And so I'll just quickly, because I know we've got two other people to talk. I just wanted to share some of the things we're finding. So we do rely heavily on these surveys, obviously, but we need people to take the survey seriously and know that we're taking it seriously as well. So we try to be transparent and share the results, talk about the results, and show how we're using their input to make changes. That goes for students and faculty. And the small changes matter because they really appreciate being heard. And whenever you can say to somebody, like, I saw you wrote that and that was a great idea. We'd like to get to it, but we can't do it yet. Or we're going to try to do that right away. Like, they just appreciate being heard. And then we also try to close the loop and follow up and let everybody know what's going on, why we're making these changes, what informed the change, is the change successful, and what do we need to do to follow up. And also, we can't wait for the perfect data. This past semester or past spring, because we had sent the surveys out late and we didn't get a whole lot of feedback, part of me was like, well, I don't know if that's enough. Did we get enough input? But on the other side of the coin is the input we did get was valuable, and taking their feedback seriously is helpful. And even just a few voices can have an impact. So I think feedback is only valuable if it changes practice. So when we use our survey strategically, like, we don't send the survey out just to send a survey and check a box and say, yeah, we asked for feedback, done, got it. Show middle states, we have survey results. But it's like, then what happens? Like, you have to be able to show what you did, what change did your surveys inform, and how can you follow up on that? I think even if we just try to do one or two small changes, I think it really is rewarding both to your department and to the people who are participating in the survey. And then they're going to be more willing to give you feedback in the future. So that is my presentation. And I'm going to step aside so that you can go on to the second one.
Just
Thank you.
before we, oh, thanks, Judy. And just before we jump to our next speaker, there are a couple of questions. Thank you for your presentation. And most of the questions revolve around sharing some of the materials that you mentioned. Maureen stated, it would be interesting to see your faculty and student surveys. Would you be open to sharing them in the SUNY Summit Connect site, along with a link to the podcast? And a follow-up question by Simone, are there any Brightspace templates or shells to share or demo for the online orientation?
Yes, so I can share the surveys and definitely the link to the podcast. The orientation is in the midst of an overhaul. So I would be more comfortable sharing a video about that once the new one is released. Lloyd's been working really hard on that, and she's got it almost ready. I don't want to share the old materials if they're not going to be relevant anymore. So we're going to hold off on that until it's ready, but I can definitely get those other things to you right away. Is that helpful?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we also have our next presenter, Kristin.
Okay, let's see if I can share this again. Does everybody see the right presentation part? Okay, good. So my name is Kristin Hall. I'm a senior instructional designer at CELT at Stony Brook University. So I'm going to talk about our online course development process that's new in our department and going over the data and assessments and stuff that we have done along the way to continually improve the process as we're going through it. So just a little bit of background information. The instructional designer role at Stony Brook does not just focus on online course development or building online courses. So we are also kind of a faculty support center. So we do focus on active learning, inclusive teaching, accessibility, which I know most of us are working on that as well. Generative AI assessments. We have assessment specialists in our office as well. So we do work with the entire university, whether it's in-person, hybrid, or online classes. We also do facilitate the online teaching course, which is a 15-hour asynchronous course that we provide to our faculty. We do committee work within the department and university-wide. And prior to 2025, there was no structured process for one-on-one online course design support at the university. So we have this new initiative where we are building that right now. We also have had a pretty big staffing growth, which is great, but it does come with growing pains. So as you can see, in August 2019, we had 2 senior instructional designers, 1 instructional designer, and then an instructional tech. She's kind of split between technology and instructional design. And then as of February of this year, we have 2 senior IDs, 6 instructional designers, and we're hiring 1 right now. So we've had a lot of growth. So training and stuff like that has been challenging. So this new initiative that we have is in 2024. We have a new vice provost for continuing professional and online education, and he really sits within the School of Professional Development, but we also work very closely with him. So part of this new course redesign, we've been working with the graduate programs. So we don't have any undergrad online programs. We have undergrad online courses, but all of our degree programs are at the graduate level. So we have been tasked to help redesign and redevelop these courses. So faculty do receive a stipend. They work one-on-one with an instructional designer. And in our pilot, we had 2 courses per ID, but one ID only had 1 course. And we started with human resource management and our master's of business administration program. So as part of this, we did need to have a new standard for online course development. So this required to create new documents and create a whole new process in place for that. So we were heavily influenced by all of these things on this slide. So we focus on backwards design process. We also really heavily relied on this book, which is High Impact Design for Online Courses, or it's usually called HiDoc. You'll hear that terminology by Bethany Simonik, Andrea Gregg, and Penny Ralstonberg. And you can see that there is a screenshot of this book on the right-hand side of the slide, so if you wanted to go look at that book, you can go take a look. So all of these books we purchased books for all of the IDs, and we did run like a little book club as we were starting the process. Most of us have also done Quality Matters training and Oscar course quality training. We are also very heavily influenced on universal design for learning. And my dissertation work in my PhD program was heavily focused on online education. So that did also influence the process. So for our first cohort, these are the logistics that kind of went into it. So the departments were recruited by our vice provost. All faculty were required to complete the online teaching course prior to starting with the project. There was an intellectual property agreement that was created. This did not exist prior. So they worked on creating this where ownership is shared between the university and the faculty member. We did have a kickoff meeting with everybody who was involved in the project prior to starting the course development project. Faculty receive their stipend once the project is complete. So there is no money given up front. Everything is given once the course is totally done. So our initial timeline was 4 months. That was very ambitious, which you'll see at the end of this. We are no longer at a 4-month timeline. So myself and our office manager did work with our School of Professional Development in terms of the logistics for extra service, payment, and all of that. And then we had sign-off paperwork at the end of the process where we did do Oscar reviews. We signed off that the courses were complete and met standards, and then the faculty were paid at the end. This just indicates the timeline of our first cohort and so, the cohorts that have come after that. So on the left side of this slide, we do have a timeline outlined that starts in December of 2024 and goes all the way to present day in February. So our first cohort did launch in December of 2024. And we had our initial course design meetings kind of starting in January of 2025. So from January to May of 2025, we did have weekly ID meetings to go over the process. We got lots of feedback from that. We found that the process was not as clear from the very beginning, and there were a lot of questions, both with the faculty and with the instructional designers. In March, we did send out an assessment survey to all faculty, but we only received one response. So, and they just said wonderful things about everything. So we didn't really take that as valid because we didn't really hear from everybody. From June to August, we still continued those course design meetings, and then we brought on our assessment specialist. So she then did some interviews with the instructional designers and also with the faculty that participated in the first cohort. In August of 2025, we did do Oscar reviews, and we started out with 7 courses and 6 of them completed, and that was launched in fall of 2025. In October to December of 2025, we had our second cohort launch. This was a lot later than expected. We wanted to do this in August or September, but we had some issues with faculty not have completed the online teaching course. So we got delayed with this. And you can see we have 9 courses, 5 nursing. So we brought nursing on, 1 MBA, and 4 human resource management. They're expected to be completed around now, but we are seeing some delays. In November, I had some debrief with some of the courses that had just finished and making some updates to that. And then you can see in February of 2026, we just launched our 3rd cohort. So I do have this note that's on the lower right-hand side of this slide that indicates that our 2nd and our 3rd cohort right now are overlapped, which is not ideal. So some of the instructional designers are working with 4 to 5 classes right now. So just to kind of go over our assessment data. So again, we had weekly instructional designer meetings, and this is where we did obtain feedback from the instructional designers on confusion, challenges, expectations. We did review the course design process, and we refined a lot of the documents. And then we did have those assessment specialist interviews. So 5 out of the 7 faculty members did participate, and we had 4 instructional designers participate that. And our assessment specialist was wonderful and gave us a summary report in August and September to give us all this feedback, which was really, really helpful. These were the assessment questions for the faculty. So I won't go through them all, but they focused on the course design process, collaboration with the instructional designer, and any suggestions for improvement. And then for the ideas, very similar, their experience with the course design process, collaboration with their faculty member, and then their suggestions for improvement. We also did do Oscar quality reviews. So we had Oscar dashboard created. Alex Pickett was wonderful in helping us do that. And then we had 3 reviewers. So 2 instructional designers and a senior ID reviewed all the courses. So the instructional designers were given courses that they did not work on to do those reviews. We also had our course content accessibility specialist do a digital accessibility review, which we did find was way too late in the process because it was done at the end. So we have brought that up a lot further in the process, but she was really helpful in getting us to make sure things were accessible. And then we also did some course updates based upon the Oscar reviews before we finalized the courses. So some of our challenges and lessons learned. So I love this graphic that I found that we have on the upper right-hand corner of the slide here, where it shows a line going from left to right, but it's not straight. It's quite messy in the middle. And that's how this process felt most of the time. Kind of still feels that way. So some of our challenges and our first cohort was supposed to start in December, and one of our courses didn't start till March. It was very challenging to communicate with the faculty member. Several of the faculty members went on vacations or medical leave, which delayed the process a bit. We had Brightspace templates that were also delayed in being finalized. So we created one specific for the departments, but those weren't always completely solidified when we started building the courses. Our courses did not finish until August of 2025, so the total timeline was 8 to 9 months. And for some of them, we had to just kind of decide that, we're done because the semester was starting pretty soon. We did have the IDs also track their time on course development and meeting with faculty members, and that ended up being pretty inconsistent. And we were using all different measures and ways of tracking that time. So we did come together to have a more consistent way of doing that. Also, I found that the course facilitation and faculty experience was very different. So some of these courses were taught by other faculty members who did not participate in this project, nor have they taken the online teaching course. So there was some challenges with that, with just being aware of some of the educational technologies or understanding why the course was built the way that it was built. We also learned there was way too many documents, way too many. The High Doc book is a great book, but they do recommend so many documents. So that did not work for us. We also found that communication was challenging with faculty. Staffing, training, new IDs, getting everybody on board. We had about 3 instructional designers start between November, December, and we started this process in December and January. So it was a lot of new stuff happening all at once. There was a lot of lack of direction, clarity of expectations, all of that. So we really tried to improve upon that. We also had some confusion about how much redesign, because all of these classes already exist online. So there was some confusion that some of the IDs thought that these were being put online for the first time. So we had to kind of clarify those things. We also had some syllabi not completed prior to the Oscar reviews, which if any of you have done Oscar reviews, that doesn't work. So we definitely had difficulties in completing those. The time on task for courses was not documented. And this is something that we are definitely looking at going forward. So we are not sure if there's too much or not enough material within the courses during this first time around. So we have definitely implemented more a spreadsheet for us to track this a bit better. We did have some instances where files were shared on personal work computers and not on a shared Google Drive. And so we didn't have access when needed. So we have streamlined that as well. We're asking everyone to share information on our shared Google Drives. As I said before, digital accessibility was way too late in the process. I'm sure all of you experiencing this right now. AI and online asynchronous is very challenging. So trying to rethink ways of doing assessment in that type of environment. We had some complaints that there was a really long turnaround for feedback on the Oscar review. This came from faculty. So they weren't sure why it was taking 2 or 3 weeks for them to get feedback in order to then be able to make those changes moving forward. And one thing is definitely be careful of assumptions. There was a lot of unintentional assumptions that were made throughout this entire process for both faculty and IDs. So this was terms, processes, technology, all of that. So we've learned that we have to be very, very explicit in what we're talking about. We did get some positive feedback, so that was great. So our faculty really found the online teaching course very helpful. So that is something that I think we're pretty strong in. Most of the faculty also expressed that they were very happy with their interactions with their ID and the whole process in and of itself. Even though it was a little bit bumpy, they all knew that this was a new process, and so they came along with us, and they were overall very happy with the process. So updates and revisions. So these are some of the revisions that we've made to our process. So we now have the expectation that faculty meet weekly with their instructional designer. Before, it was like every other week, sometimes every 3 weeks. So now upfront, faculty know the expectation is to meet with their ID every week. We're also tracking that time on task to make sure that we do have that tracked. We have also updated our time tracking for IDs, so that is all much more consistent. Our digital course content accessibility specialist, she is involved much earlier in the process. So we were working on that as we're building the course. As I said before, expectations for all the files are now shared in our Google Space. Our Brightspace course templates are finalized before instructional designers are building the courses within Brightspace. And we've also started to create a resource for IDs for inspiration on different types of Brightspace pages that we can use. We also have new design documents. This was really a big part of the whole process. So we streamline our documents into Google Docs. So I have two icons here on the bottom right, which is Google Docs and Microsoft Loop. I'm going to make a little plug for Microsoft Loop. We cannot use it because we are a Google school and things got kind of messed up, where I'm not able to share files. However, if you have the ability to be able to explore Microsoft Loop, I highly recommend it. It is such a cool tool. But we pivoted towards Google Docs, and I'll have some screenshots here of some of these documents. So this screenshot shows a Google Doc with the tabs on the right at the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, I have a page that indicates our course design and development process. So you can see we have several different tabs here that indicate the process for learning objectives, assessments, practicing backwards design, our course alignment map, and so forth. So we put everything into one document instead of having several other documents. So this is another screenshot example where we're highlighting our learning objectives slide. We also have a different document for module outlines where we've revamped this completely. So we're getting hopefully much more clear information from the faculty members. So this indicates on the left side, we have tabs indicating information for the modules such as readings, multimedia, VoiceThread, and feedback fruits. And then we have showing our module 1 overview and all of the things that we're looking for the faculty members. We have found that this has been a lot more organized and easier to complete for the faculty. And so this screenshot is also just another example showing how we indicate our Brightspace activities. So overall, our original timeline was for a 4-month cycle. We were very ambitious. We find that does not work. So we have now switched to a twice a year, which we hope to catch up of starting in this July. So we have 3 courses per ID, doing 15 courses per cycle. And then we'll do 2 6-month cycles, January to June and July to December. So we're hoping this will give faculty and IDs more time to be able to finish this process. So last slide is what we're still figuring out. More updates to the course design documents. We're continually refining them and updating as we're getting feedback. ID training, we don't have anything formal in process right now. A lot of this is just through our ID meetings. We have not finalized a course refresh process. So in 3 to 5 years, once these classes have already been designed, we're not quite sure what we're doing with that moving forward. We are working on our continued logistics for planning for future cycles to make sure that we're starting on time for these faculty. We still are very unsure about what to do with the faculty who are teaching, but have not participated in this process, nor have taken our online teaching course. So we're trying to figure out how to make that transition a little bit better. And lastly, we are looking to take our course documents and translate them into a self-paced faculty facing documents so that they can do this on their own with a little bit more support and maybe check in with an ID once or twice. So hopefully this will be a little bit more scalable, but we're expecting this to take a little bit of time to be able to put this into place. So here's just some resources that I have. Again, Microsoft Loop, if you are able to check that out, I highly recommend it. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kristin. And we do have some questions before we jump to our next speaker. A couple of the initial questions were about stipends.
Yes.
So, and it was specifically, how much were the stipends and how did you fund them?
I am not quite sure how they're being funded. So that is through our vice provost for continuing education in our school of professional development. They are pretty well, I think, paid for this, so they're getting $6,500 to work with an instructional designer to redesign their projects, redesign their courses, and the instructional designers do build the course in Brightspace with the faculty obviously input in it. So yeah, it's quite generous, I think.
Thanks. And you may have answered this one, but I'll just throw it out there again. You described this process as taking roughly about 8 to 9 months. The initial question was, what is the timeline for the cohort or course ideally? Is that the 6 months that you mentioned as the new schedule?
Yes, so we were trying to do a 4 month process. It's not working in practice. So we are going to switch to a 6 month process. So we're hoping that that gives the faculty, because most of the faculty we're working with are also teaching at this point, and they're not getting reduced course loads. So this is extra in addition to what they're doing. So we're hoping the 6 month will be work a little bit better.
Great. And two questions. I'll go with the shorter question first. Is there any branding or badge once the course has been improved as an identifier for the students?
That's a good question. No, we do not. But that is a very good suggestion, and I'll definitely look into that, but we do not have that yet.
And lastly, how did faculty receive the Oscar review process? And to piggyback off of that, were there any standards that faculty pushed back on the most? And how did you kind of deal with that process overall?
Yeah, so the as part of the online teaching course, we do introduce the Oscar in our last module, and they practice using a modified version of it. So they're introduced to it from the very beginning. So I didn't find that we had any pushback from faculty. Some needed to be convinced along the way when I was hearing from our instructional designers about like, why are we doing this? And it's like, well, back to Oscar, this is why we're looking to do this. So I would say we had definitely had faculty question some things, but in the end, we were able to, successfully convince them. And we built it into the process. So we will not sign off on the course, and the faculty won't get paid until they pass what we consider a successful Oscar review. So obviously we know that not everything will, be completely there. But as instructional designers, it's actually the senior IDs will review the course and the Oscar reviews. And if we deem that they have met the standards, then we sign off on it and the faculty will get paid after that.
Great. Thank you, Kristin.
Thank
And
you.
now we will jump over to our last speaker for this session, Brandi So. Oh, I think you're muted.
I lost my screen. Here I am. So I think you can see my slides. Is that fair? You can see this? Yes, thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how Farmingdale State College has used the SUNY Online data dashboards to drive strategic planning and change. And as I've otherwise titled this presentation, Farmingdale has online students, question mark. We do. So I'm going to cover in 15 minutes some data dashboards. This slide shares the outline for what I'm going to talk about today, which is to show how we've changed our strategies for communication, advocacy, branding, spending, and curriculum based on SUNY online data. In order to talk about this, I want to use this slide to kind of roll back the footage to my first day at Farmingdale State College, which was May 1st, 2023. And at the time, there had been a robust investment from the campus into what we call work for hire or incentive courses. These are courses like Kristin was just mentioning. The faculty are paid an incentive, and then it's jointly owned by the college and the department and the faculty. But when I arrived, and they have an incredible handbook that really details the policy. So Farmingdale had a good, strong, supportive history from the provost office and how online courses are developed and approved. And so all of this was working very well when I arrived, but the data wasn't clear. And then they had this sense that there was probably a lot of courses being offered online that hadn't been officially approved. So my first task was to track down those rogue courses, still while being likable and making friends and bringing them back in for the review process, which includes an OSCAR review, instructional designer sign off, and department chair has to sign off on the rigor and the content. So it goes through, every course goes through a lot of review. This slide right here shows the number of course approvals processed in the last few years. And you'll see from 2022, it went from 74 course approvals up to 220 in a single year. And this is with 3 instructional designers. They are a machine. They have a lot of structure, a lot of assets, a lot of things that help them stay very efficient, and a lot of templating. But that was a huge jump. And then when we go to 2024, it's still 145 classes. And then this 2026 tile on the bottom right lists that we have built over 1,000 courses with over nearly 400 faculty. And these can be more than like one of a course of a type. Maybe 2 or 3 faculty build a History 121, for example. But we're starting to see something here that nobody was really paying attention to, or we didn't have the data, but you had the sense. So in the fall of 2023, the provost convenes the online degree task force at Farmingdale State College, representation from across the campus. And I won't go through the charge, but the charge is based on our institutional review performed by SUNY. That process was crucial for our benchmarking, understanding where our gaps were. And so using the OLC scorecard that comes with the SUNY institutional review process is what framed this work. So it's fall 23. I'm co-chairing this task force. I'm meeting people from all across the campus, and they all seem to be saying, Farmingdale has online programs. And yeah, really, it wasn't like, a lot of people didn't know. There was really a communication problem, and that was very clear. So yeah, we had 4 online degree programs, and the enrollment for those degree programs was about 100. So this slide is the second part of my talk, which is going to show you some of the SUNY online data dashboards, what it shows, and how it changed us. So this first slide is a depiction of the data that shows course sections by instruction type. And this is where we start to see that the online course offerings at Farmingdale are fully 20% of their offerings. And then when I looked a little closer and saw where were our seats, so it changed my communication. I started to talk about how, 20% of all of our classes are online or of some type. Nearly 25% of our enrollment seats are being sold to students in online programs. So this really changed not just what we were saying, and these are some of the communications channels listed on this slide. I went to deans councils, chairs councils, governance, but it changed how the campus perceived its responsibility toward online students and online learners. I got more and more requests to train chairs and deans in how to evaluate an online course. So we created an OSCAR training for chairs and deans. We started surveying these students. We built the first ever for Farmingdale online orientation to Farmingdale State College. We see videos coming from all over campus in support of this. And so it really changed from the chair to the faculty, from the top to the bottom, how much people felt like that they were involved in protecting the quality of this experience for our students. This slide is just a screenshot of some of the data that from that moment we started reporting back to the campus. This is data about our engagement metrics, the tool utilization, our course developments, and so on. This slide is a screenshot of SUNY Online data that shows the online enrollment status of our students. And again, I just want to say, we weren't really looking at this before. So when I saw this dashboard and started to see okay, maybe there was 100 online degree program students, but there was 500 to 1,000 students choosing to learn only online at Farmingdale. And then additionally, we're looking at upwards of 40 to 50% of our students taking at least some online classes. And so this was something that really changed our advocacy. So we were able to secure funding in 2023 with the support from our then provost for an online student concierge. This is a job title born out of kind of SUNY best practices recommendations. And so Maria Stamilli joined our team, and she really she does weekly outreach, and she connects any and all students using our LMS or taking online classes to services. This is a dashboard from our SUNY Online dashboard that looks at the demographics of our students. And one thing that we were really shocked to see was that we weren't finding that Farmingdale State College online students were majority adult learners in the workforce, non-traditional. It was not that at all. Those students who are taking some online courses at Farmingdale is nearly 90% traditional age. So we saw something different about the demographics that we expected entirely. And so this slide shows how our branding changed. We had to join Instagram. We're still learning. We started with social media in Instagram and LinkedIn, and this was new for our department, but we were looking for ways to reach this demographic of students. So fortunately, we have some student employees in our office who are very helpful, not only with the graphic design element, but on how to use Instagram. So we're growing this. If you guys see us, we are FSC__online. Two underscores because the one with one underscore was apparently taken by somebody else. And it changed our branding as well. And so this is a flyer for Admitted Students Day. What we're really starting to see is that students can come to Farmingdale and complete almost all of their degree online, even if we don't have the online degree program officially, because we have so many offerings, especially in our general education courses. All right, this is a slide that shows our faculty teaching percentages. And we see like pre-pandemic, 15% of our faculty were teaching online. And after the pandemic, 28%, so nearly 30, nearly doubling how many faculty are teaching online. Now we kind of got that, from the rogue course, in 2023, it became clear, but it was the first time we were really looking at this. So this slide shows you how this changed our spending habits. Obviously, without even trying, we're changing our, like the faculty spending dollars are going more towards online faculty because there's more faculty teaching online. Our work for hire incentives are $2,500 a course. But additionally, we realized that our students, these online students, they're paying student activities fees. And there was no programming of a virtual type for these students. So we were able to secure some funding from the Student Government Association and student activities. Student activities mailed out welcome, like swag packets to these online only students. So we're able to make some adjustments in how these dollars are being spent based on these student demographics. This slide here shows the online programs at institutions of technology colleges, and it shows one thing was correct. We aren't an online college. In fact, we're trailing behind very much in terms of the number of online programs that we offer at Farmingdale for our size. We're behind our neighbors on the island and our technology counterparts. So this piece of information was really powerful, and it changed our curriculum. From that piece of information, we saw from the provost's office a real push to go ahead and get NYSED approval for online degree programs that we hadn't had approval for prior. So we went from having approvals for 9 up to 29 and growing. Now we're still, I think we just added a few more new online degree programs. They were in the pipeline and more are coming. So it's a slow growth, but the campus has definitely recognized and made a shift based on that data. We also launched a public-facing course dashboard so prospective students could see that, in fact, you can come to Farmingdale State College and finish a lot of your classes here online. So this is my last slide, and I just wanted to say that, in relying on the SUNY Online data dashboard, it opened a lot of channels for me to communicate with stakeholders across the campus. It gave me a a way to tell a story, right? Like that we talk about with data, but also it changed how we're doing data on our home base. So this slide right here, it might be a little hard to see, but at the top right, there's a little button that says online status. And we got that about 2 weeks ago. And that feels like a win. And I know where it's coming from based on, the work that we've done with SUNY, which, obviously SUNY is such an incredible partner for these things. And so, really this slide deck and this presentation is a big thank you to them. So I think that's it. So I will stop sharing. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm also just going to share my final slide just for the moment, but we still have just a couple more minutes for questions. If there is any questions that has not been asked yet. And I also just wanted to say, speaking for the win, I think data for the win is like today's theme. So I agree with Jamie's comment in the chat as well. And also, as it relates to your presentation. Lots of
Thank
good
you.
conversation. Yeah, lots of good conversation in the chat. And by all means, if you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or throw them in the chat. Also, we have our SUNY Online Summit Connect space where you can continue the conversation. Let me throw that in the chat as well. If you registered before the 16th, you'll have access to that. And sometimes the best questions or thoughts don't strike until later. And in this space, you can join the discussion forums, ask questions, and review resources, and you continue exploring the ideas shared here. We do have one extra question before we jump off. What was the most surprising about the use of social media in your work? I believe this is for Brandi.
Well, one was just that we had a lot to learn. We created a Discord channel we haven't really engaged with. We've learned that you really want to hitch your wagon to another successful wagon, right? So finding student activities or really large account holders using the collaborate function in Instagram really helped us expand our reach. In that, we use some student activities fees to create some prizes for following contests. So please follow us and we'll select one random follower spring and fall. It's just like a $50 gift card. So those are some lessons learned, I guess, about when it comes to surprises. It's I guess I'm surprised it's as difficult as it is. I feel like, I feel like I'm not a dum-dum. I can figure this out, but it really has been like something like the younger staff in our office like totally get, and then I'm sitting like, how do we do this again? So that's just a personal problem, I guess. But we're still new. We only have like 100 or so followers, but we're just like figuring out ways to grow is definitely relies on building a community of other accounts. So maybe that's an obvious answer.
Thank you. And we do have at least one more in a comment. Can you talk more about the chairs and deans learning about Oscar and how my school can get that off the ground?
Yeah. So ours was an unofficial one. We are going to be moving to something more formal that is like aligned more with SUNY credentials. But what we did is we built a dummy course with a lot of strengths and weaknesses. It's a 2-hour hands-on workshop. We spend about 45 minutes going through the key sections of the Oscar, making the chairs and deans familiar with those components. And in the second half, we use Poll Everywhere, and then we enroll them into the demo course and ask them to do some practice evaluations and then use the polling. So that's the format of it. To get it off the ground, we started with the deans who wanted their chairs to do a better job at evaluating quality in their online courses because chairs have access to the final shell and deans do not. So that led to this, right? The deans wanted to know more. We weren't going to put the deans in to be the subject matter expert at the department level. And so it was really through dean support that the suggestion came. And then the chairs, when they saw how many of their students were learning online, they followed. We opened it up to all faculty just because for peer observations and reviews, it can't hurt. But we are looking forward to, in the next year, working with Alex and working with SUNY and doing something more formal. We're blessed by institutional support. That's everybody knows, you need that. You need that support from the top down. And so that's where the data really served me well, was getting more of that.
Thanks, Brandi. And speaking of support and following, your Instagram handle has been added into the chat.
Thank you.
Along with Judy with Genesee. And feel free to also post those in the SUNY Online Summit Connect space. There's this discussion forum for making connections, and that would be a great place to put them too.
Excellent. We'll put our LinkedIn in there. Thank you, Helene.
Thank you. And thank you to our presenters and to all of our participants for your time and attention during today's session. Like I mentioned, you can continue the conversation in the SUNY Online Summit Connect, where there will also be the slides and additional materials. Those will also be posted later to the website. Our next session is Insights from the Field, a podcast on policy, data, and inclusive collaboration at 3:45. Thank you and see you there.